lot of English learners think that sounding natural means using bigger vocabulary and more advanced grammar or speaking really, really fast. But honestly, that's usually not the problem. Most of the time, people sound unnatural because of a few small habits they don't even notice. And the interesting thing is that your English can be completely correct and still sound a little strange in conversation. Not wrong, just unnatural, like textbook English instead of real life English. And honestly, almost every learner goes through this at some point. So while you watch this video, don't try to memorize everything. Just notice yourself a little. You'll probably hear a few things and think, yeah, I do that too. That awareness alone already helps a lot. So let's start with one of the biggest ones. A lot of learners sound too formal in casual conversations, and this usually happens because they learned English mainly through school, where the focus is on correct English instead of natural, everyday, real-life English. So for example, someone says, "Hey, how's it going?" And the learner responds with, well, first of all, some learners will not even know what that means because you don't usually learn that in school, right? But if you did, that's good. But a typical response would be, "I am fine, thank you, and you?" "I am fine, thank you, and you?" This is the very first answer I learned to "How are you?" "I am fine, thank you, and you?" This is very common. Now listen, there is nothing wrong with it grammatically, but in real life, it sounds extremely formal, almost like a textbook conversation from many years ago. And most native speakers would say something much lighter and natural. Something like, "Good, thanks, you?" "Good, thanks, you?" Or not bad, how about you?" "Not bad, how about you?" Or even, "Yeah, pretty good, yourself?" "Yeah, pretty good, yourself?" Obviously, there are many more ways to reply to how you doing, or how's it going, or how are you, which I'm not going to include in this video. That's how real conversations usually sound: shorter, looser, and less stressful. And honestly, many learners don't sound unnatural because their English is bad. They sound unnatural because they're trying too hard to sound correct. That's a huge difference. Another really common one is using very for absolutely everything. Again, nothing wrong there, but there are better alternatives. So for example, very tired, very hungry, very cold, very funny. These are all good phrases to use. Okay, but after a while, your English starts sounding repetitive, and it's always a good idea to have alternatives, all right? Variations, right? Variety. Having variety in your English shows that you are confident and you have good command of the language. And also, native speakers always use different ways to express themselves. And also because native speakers often replace very plus the adjective with one stronger word. So for example, instead of very tired, they say exhausted. Instead of very cold, they say freezing. Instead of very big, they say huge or massive, depending on the context. And these tiny upgrades make your English sound much more natural immediately. Not because the vocabulary is advanced, but because it's the way people actually speak in real life. Now, this next one is very sneaky. Yeah, there you go. This next one is sneaky. Because technically, the grammar is perfect, but the sentence still sounds unnatural. For example, imagine someone asks, "Hey, are you coming tonight?" "Hey, are you coming tonight?" And you respond with, "I do not think I can come because I am currently working." "I do not think I can come because I am currently working." Perfect grammar, excellent response. But honestly, nobody really talks like that casually, especially in spoken conversation. A native speaker would probably say something like, "I don't think I can come, I'm working." "I don't think I can come, I'm working." This is shorter, this is faster, more relaxed, and the message is still the same. Okay? Sometimes there's no need to over-explain. Keeping things short will save you a lot of time and will make you a better communicator overall. And this is something that many learners misunderstand. To be honest, even native speakers make this mistake. Sometimes they over-explain themselves when it's more effective to go straight to the point without beating around the bush, without wasting time on details that are not important. Yeah, so fluent, effective English communication is usually not long, complicated English. It's actually simple and more reduced and straight to the point, shorter. For example, I'm instead of I am, don't, can't, we were instead of we are. So these are contractions that are commonly used in spoken English, because spoken English moves quickly, so people tend to avoid long sentences and they shorten and using contractions and so on, and linking words and so on. And when every sentence sounds fully constructed and overly careful, it starts to sound robotic, especially if you learned English mostly through writing or studying grammar like I did, because written English and spoken English breathe differently. They are very different. You speak in a way and write in a completely different way. Spoken English is much more informal than written English. Now, this next one is completely normal, but very important. A lot of learners translate directly from their own language, especially in the beginning. And honestly, everybody does this at first. I've done it myself when learning English. But languages don't organize ideas the same way. For example, my native language and English are different languages. So if I translate things from my language literally into English, it will not work. It won't. And sometimes a sentence makes perfect sense in a language, but sounds strange in English. Because English doesn't always translate words directly. It translates meaning. That's the big difference. So instead of asking, how do I say this exact sentence in English? It's often better to ask, how would an English speaker express this idea naturally? Again, how would an English speaker express this idea naturally? That small shift changes everything. And honestly, simple English is usually much more natural than translated English. That's why fluent speakers often sound simple. Not because they know less, but because they know what sounds natural. The next one is something that many learners completely underestimate. Pronunciation is important, yes, but rhythm might be even more important, because native speakers don't pronounce every word with the same energy and with the same emphasis. Okay, English has something that is called stress. Okay, movement, musicality. Take the word beautiful. Native speakers say beautiful or beautiful if you're American or Canadian. Now, the first part is stronger. Beau, beau. The rest becomes softer and quicker. Okay, beau, beautiful, beautiful. But many learners pronounce every syllable equally because they are not aware of the stress pattern in English. And when every word has the same rhythm and stress, English starts to sound strange and flat, almost robotic, because natural English has strong sounds, weak sounds, connected sounds, and disappearing sounds. That's what creates flow. And honestly, this is why listening matters so much. You can't really learn rhythm and stress pattern from grammar books. You learn it by hearing real English again and again and again in podcasts, in videos, interviews, conversations. That's where natural English actually lives. Sounding natural in English is actually not about becoming more advanced. It's more about removing the little habits that make your English sound too formal, too careful, too translated or too stiff. And the good news is that these things are fixable. Most learners are actually much closer to natural English than they realize. They usually just need small adjustments, not perfect English. So if you noticed yourself making some of these mistakes, that's actually a good sign, because awareness is where improvement starts. And the more natural English you listen to, the more natural you begin to speak over time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.